Hi everyone, welcome to this new video. My name is Aditya and on this channel I talk about Kubernetes, blockchain and software in general. And in today's video we are going to set up IPFS in the cluster mode. We will be setting up a 3-node IPFS cluster where we will be having 3 IPFS nodes running in a cluster mode and they will be replicating the data among themselves. So this will be the private cluster where the data will be retained within those cluster nodes. So now let's try to understand why do we need IPFS cluster. Like there are IPFS nodes which we can run in a standalone mode that we saw in the one of the last video where we were running the IPFS node and we were able to do bunch of operations, right? Like adding new files and pinning those files. So we were able to achieve all this with the IPFS node. But why do we need IPFS cluster? So IPFS cluster is a way to automate the pinning and replication among multiple nodes. So this will ensure that the data is replicated among all the nodes and it will also ensure that the data is always pinned. So these IPFS cluster node, they runs as a sidecar to the IPFS actual node or the Kubo node. And in the last video, we saw like how to run the Kubo node or the IPFS node on your local machine. And we will be extending the same concept here as well. And we will be setting up, all the IPFS node in all the 3 machines, since it will be going to be a 3-node cluster. And after that, we will be setting up the IPFS cluster and we will be seeing like how we can add files and how the data pinning is actually happening. So for this, I'll quickly head to my terminal window and you can see here that I have 3 windows here and all these 3 windows are the instances of my Ubuntu machine. So I have 3 machines here and what I have done is like I have already installed the IPFS binary and my IPFS service is already running. And if you want to understand like how we did it, you can definitely check out the last video of this series where I showed how to set up the IPFS node. So what I can show you here is if I do sudo systemctl status, and if we try to see the status of our IPFS service, IPFS node service, we can see that it's running, right? And we can just verify this. I'll just run the same command on the other 2 instances as well, and here we can see that this is also running. As a prerequisite, I have already done this, and if you want to understand how to do this, then definitely you can check the last video. So now what we have to do next is if we go to the official docs here and if we go to the section which is download and setup. So we'll be following up these steps and so what we'll do is we'll install the first this IPFS cluster CTL binary and we'll just initialize our IPFS cluster node and then we have to run the IPFS node using the daemon. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly download these binaries and you can get the binaries from this download page here and just click on this IPFS cluster service and we also need this IPFS cluster CTL. We need these 2 binaries, so I'll just first do the IPFS cluster service and since I'm running this on Ubuntu and my CPU architecture is 64-bit, so I'll just copy the link here, copy link address, and I'll just do a wget here. I'll just run the same command on all the 3 nodes and I'll wait to get it downloaded. Okay, so the binary is downloaded. Now I can just extract that here. So I'll run this command tar xvf and I'll give the binary or the tar file here and this will extract it. So I'll just run this command on other 2 machines as well. Okay, so now we have this we have extracted the binary and if I do IPFS cluster service we can see the binary. Now we have to just move this binary to our path variable so that we can access it from anywhere. So what I'll do is I'll just do a sudo move and this present at here and I'll just move this to /user local bin. I'll move this here and let's run the same command on other machines as well. Okay, now we have moved it, so we should be able to run this or access this cluster service. So if I do version, it should show us. So let's verify this on all the machine. Yeah, it's working perfectly fine. So now we have the IPFS cluster service. Now we have to get the client binary or the client application, so that which we can use to access or interact with our IPFS cluster service. So if we go here and if I go back to the download page again, and now we need this binary which is IPFS cluster CTL. So again the step will going to be same, like just copy the link and just do a wget so that I can get it here locally. Okay, so downloading has been started on all the three machines, and after this we can extract it and then we'll move this again to the environment or the path variable. So again tar -xvf, and then this is the tar file. Let's run this command on other machines as well, from here as well. Okay, looks like the download happened here. Let's do a wget again. Okay, let's do. We're not sure why this is. Let me remove. Let me remove all of these whatever is here, and let's run this again. And now, meanwhile, we can just move this binary to the required location. So I'll do sudo mv, and I want to move this to user local bin, and let's run the same command over here as well, and let's try to extract it now. Yeah, we are able to extract it, and now we can move it. So now we have moved it. Let's see if we can access this binary or not. So I'll just clear this terminal, and if I do version, it should run. So we can see that we are able to access both the binaries, like the IPFS cluster service and IPFS CTL cluster CTL. Okay, now we need to create a service, or before creating up a service we just first initialize the IPFS cluster node. So for that we have to do IPFS hyphen cluster hyphen service init, and this will initialize the IPFS cluster configuration. So it will create three files. Let's go to this particular location where it has created all the files, and if I just go here and do ls, so it has three files. So first is the service.json, which contains the details of your cluster IP or CIDT consensus detail, and there is this file which is identity.json, which contains the identity like the node ID and its private key, and this peer store is the file where we can add the other nodes addresses so that it can start with or it can bootstrap with those set of node details. So let's first see this file. Again we can see here this is the node ID, and let's try to see the service as well. And if I just expand this, we can see the bunch of details here, like the peer name and the secret, and you can see a bunch of other details like these are some of the details related to replication, and right now the value is set to -1, which is replicate to all the nodes who is the part of this cluster. In order to set up this cluster, we just need this key or the secret to be shared among other nodes so that they can authenticate and communicate to each other. So I'll just copy this and I will do IPFS init on other nodes as well, so that we can basically start the IPFS service. Okay, so now IPFS cluster service have been initialized on all the three nodes, and if you remember what I told is that we in order to basically connect all three nodes, we have to use the same secret. So I have copied the secret from this service.json file, and let's do one thing. Let's do it again, and I can grab it with secret. We can see this value, and we'll just modify the service.json file. And if I search for secret, we got the secret, and we can just simply go and update it. Let's put it here and let's save this. The similar we have to do here as well. And let's delete from here. Okay, so we have updated the secret, and now we are ready to create a service file, and we can start the node with the help of that service. So what I'll do, I'll just quickly create. I have already created a service file in my case. Well, I'll show you that how it looks like. And this is how that service file looks like, where I just give the name as IPFS cluster service, and this is the important command which is running, which is IPFS cluster service, and we are running this in a daemon mode. And the same file is available on other nodes as well. We'll just quickly see this in the other nodes as well. So you need to create this file to run it as a service, and you can see that the file is exactly same here. Let's see this in other one as well, the last node, and you can see that the details are exactly same. Now just need to start this service. So I can just do systemctl start, and our service name is IPFS hyphen cluster, and we can just see the status as well, if it is running or not. So you can see, if we just expand this, we can see that basically the service has been started, like the IPFS cluster service has been started. And now let's start the same service on other nodes as well. So I'll just quickly copy this command, which is starting up the service, and let's run it here, and let's verify if the service is actually running or not. So it's running here as well, and let's run it here as well. So it's again running on all the three nodes. Okay, so now our cluster is ready, and let's try to see how many peers are there, how many peers have joined the cluster. So if I do IPFS cluster CTL, and if I do peers ls, then you can see that all the other peers are directed here. If you see here, so this is the detail for the primary node, and the node name is primary for this particular machine. And if you see the second section here, and here the node name is winning sandpiper. This is the second node. If you see here, this is this winning piper node, and the third one, if you see, which is harmonic avoset. And if you see here, this is the node name, so which means that they are able to identify each other, and they are able to talk to each other. Now let's do one thing. Let's try to add some data to this IPFS cluster, and let's see if it is getting replicated or not. So what I'll do here is I'll just go back and let me create one file. I'll call this as hello. Yeah, let's keep it as hello, and we call this as hello.txt. Now let's try to add this, and for adding we'll just using the IPFS cluster CTL binary. So IPFS cluster CTL, and then add, and then the file name, which is hello.txt. So you can see that what it was added, and if I do IPFS cat against this hash, so it should show me the content as well. So you can see I got the content. Now let's try to see if this file was pinned successfully or not. So for that we'll again use the IPFS cluster CTL binary, and I can do pin ls. So you can see that it is basically showing us what all pins are available here, right? And you can see uh, this is the hash which is kind of pinned to this node, and we can similarly say the same result here as well. If I run the same command here, we should be able to see this file here as well, like this is again pinned against this node as well. Let's try to run this here as well, same command, and we should be able to see that file is pinned here as well, right? uh, Okay, so now let's try to see the pins from the IPFS node itself. So for that the command was IPFS pin ls, and if we run this IPFS pin ls, this was the hash, right? This was the hash, and we just need to identify if that hash is actually here or not. Okay, now let's try to understand one more thing. So since all of these nodes were running on my local system, like I was running them as a virtual machine, and all of these nodes were in a within the same network. They are sharing the common local network. That's why they were able to identify each other. But what if you are running this on some cloud provider, right? And at the time when you will run this, it will be able to communicate to all the nodes that are there over the internet, and that is what we don't want, right? We want it to communicate to only specific node. So for that, what you can do is, whenever you are setting up the IPFS cluster, you just need to identify at what endpoint the IPFS service is running, or the IPFS cluster service is running on. So if we try to see here, if I just do system sudo system ctl start, or let's do status IPFS cluster service, and somewhere bottom we should be able to see the the, the endpoint over which this service is running on. Let's restart this service, then I think we will be able to see it back. Okay, I'm not able to see it from here, so what I'll do, I will do IPFS cluster service, and I'll do uh, peers ls or ctl, right? So now what I'll do is, now I have the so this is the endpoint where the service is running on, and I'll quickly use this endpoint in my service file, so that these nodes will always connect to this particular node whenever they will start. So for this, what you have to do is, we will just go and edit our service file, etc system and IPFS cluster service. And what we have to do here is, like, you have to pass the bootstrap flag, something like that, like hyphen hyphen bootstrap, and then you give that particular node detail. So let's edit it. and you have to give hyphen hyphen bootstrap and just give this thing here. Just copy this, and I'll give this on the other one as well here. And the same thing we have to do on the other service as well, like service in the other node, so that they will always connect to this particular node. Like they will not look for any other node, rather they will directly go and look for this particular node. So I'll do sudo vi etc systemd system and then IPFS cluster service. And here also we have to do the same thing, just give the bootstrap details here. Let's copy this again, let's put it here and here as well. Now you can just restart this service, and you will see that whenever you see the log, they will be directly connecting to this particular node, and you will be able to see that they have successfully joined that cluster. So I think, yeah, this is what I wanted to show in this video, like how to set up the cluster of multiple nodes, and they are doing the replication among themselves using those parameters that you define in the configuration. And by default the configuration, like, it will replicate to all the nodes, and you can restrict it by specifying the number of nodes where you want to, or the number of replications you want to have. So if you have any doubts or any queries, feel free to drop them into the comment box. And if you're new to this channel, then please like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one.